peoples of the worldwide federated internets. What is good? We got to be fair. We got to have equity. Amongst people who proclaim themselves conservatives, there is growing, dissent within the ranks. I'll say I align more than not with conservatives, but I don't know if it's necessarily the proper way or idea to put people in ideological boxes, whether you call yourself a conservative or a liberal or a classical liberal. I think there's nuance to life, and I think people have differing opinions. I think people have different stances on different issues. There are some people that are just staunch one way, that stick to one crowd, and that's the only crowd they listen to. But I think there's more nuance to life and to people than just that. But in the conservative ranks, there is some dissent, some bickering, some confusion on the matter of liberty in this regard. Social media censorship is a thing. We all know that. Across all platforms. Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Certain ideas are censored. Certain ideas are not allowed to have the same air to breathe, so to speak. And there's a faction within the conservative camp that believe the government needs to step in. I do not think that is so. Now, I will say, I am not in favor of heavy-handed government regulations. I believe that the free markets and capitalism does work. Now, I am not going to say I am for 100% unchecked free markets, right? So there's always a good reason to come in and to step in and say, all right, we got to have some rules to the game. We just can't let y'all run roughshod and do whatever and run over people. But heavy-handed government regulations and government stepping in when it's not necessary, I don't believe that should be a thing. And in this instant, I don't believe it is necessary. This is why I don't believe it's necessary. I will explain. And before I will explain, you know how I like to do. I like to get to verses that kind of deal with the topics that I discuss. Maybe not deal with directly all the time, but sometimes there's principles within these verses that get to the idea that I'm trying to get across. So, with that being said, let's go to the Bible. So I'm going to go to the book of Proverbs. Where am I at? And I believe it is chapter 24 and verse... Let me go down. All right, verse 23. All right, yes. Verse 23, the Bible says, "These things also belong to the wise. It is not good to have respect of persons in judgment." Now, of course, that verse is dealing with having respect towards one person over another in judgment. So the standard you would hold one person to, you wouldn't hold another person to that same standard. The Bible's saying that's not wise. You got to be equitable in your judgment. You can't be a respecter of person. If it's not good for this person, it's not good for that person. If it's good for that person, it's good for this person. So that principle and that idea I like to apply to laws, rules, and regulations, right? And I believe heavy-handed regulation is never the answer. That doesn't mean that there's never a place for regulation, but heavy-handed regulation, in my humble opinion, is never the answer. And a lot of quote unquote conservatives will argue up and down against regulation. But in this situation with social media and the tech giants, they want the government to step in. Now, I will admit this issue is very complex. And I've gone back and forth in my head on these issues. Like, what's the answer? These platforms are huge. And these are the censors, you could say, for communication. But herein lies the problem. There are other platforms you could use. YouTube is not the only video platform. Now, is it the best as of right now? Yes, it is. But we as consumers can change that. If you don't like YouTube censorship, you can go elsewhere. If enough of us went elsewhere, there goes competition. You would force YouTube to come back to the table and say, okay, well, maybe we were a little crazy on this heavy-handed censorship. People have a problem with Twitter. There's a whole nother app called Gab that in a lot of ways is a lot better than Twitter without the censorship. People don't know about a lot of these apps. Gab has a web browser that's called Dissenter. This is what's so dope about the Dissenter web browser. So they have a comment section, right? It's a web browser based comment section. As a matter of fact, I think I got Dissenter open. I'll show you exactly what I mean. So let's go to, all right, so this is the Dissenter web browser, and I'm going to show you what I wanted you to see. So in this comment section right here, you can literally comment on anything, any website you're on, you can comment on, and you can see other people's comments. The websites don't control these comments. The web browser itself contains that comment section. So anything across the internet you can comment on, no holds barred, whatever you want to say. The web browser is called Dissenter, is made by Gab, and you can get it on their website. How many of you knew about that? Now, granted, this stuff is not advertised heavy, and I'm sure the tech giants at large don't want you to know about this stuff, but there are alternatives out there. So what's the fix? In my humble opinion, the fix to social media censorship is let's give our time and attention to some other platforms. BitChute. There's other video platforms. There's several. I've looked it up. There's several. Are they as good as YouTube right now? No, they're not. But they could be if enough of us gave our time and energy on these other apps. You see, because traffic drives advertisers. If these other platforms had as much activity and traction as YouTube, as Instagram, as Twitter, as Facebook, you don't think the advertisers want those eyeballs? Oh, yes, they want those eyeballs. You best believe they want those eyeballs. Those eyeballs generate revenue. Not everybody who sees an ad is going to go out and buy whatever they see on the ad, but there's a number of us that will, and I've done it before. I've literally been on different social media platforms and seen an ad for something, looked into that thing I saw the ad for, and wind up purchasing. Because I was like, oh, this actually interests me. Let me look into this. So We, the consumers, have the power. We don't need the government to do that. We don't need the government to step in and to do anything to these social media platforms. I don't like the fact that people are censored. I don't like the fact that people are pretty much deplatformed off of everything. I don't like that. I don't think it's right. But these are private businesses. And I don't think we're at the point that we need the government to step in to do anything. And the only reason I say that is because there are other platforms out there. Are they as big as these platforms? No, but they are out there and we can use them. We don't have to use YouTube. We don't have to use Twitter. We don't have to use Instagram. I personally have my stuff across multiple platforms. I haven't loaded as much of my videos up on, there's an app called Minds, Minds. They have a website and they have an app. I load my videos onto that app. I try to diversify. One of the reasons I try to diversify, now I'm nobody. I don't have any kind of following. Who knows? I may never have a following. That's not my purpose. But if I did get a huge following and I kind of felt the winds of being deplatformed, I'd just tell people who follow me, hey, go on these other apps that I have my content on. There are alternatives. The government is seldom ever the answer. We, the consumers, actually have the power to drive this in another direction. We don't need the government. Let's spread the love to some of these other platforms. Go use Gab. Go download the Dissenter web browser. Go use BitChute. Go use Minds. We have the power to pretty much tell these tech companies, okay, you want to censor people that you don't like, ideas that you don't like, your private business. You're more than welcome to do that. We'll take our business elsewhere. That's the solution to me. I don't think we want the government to get involved into social media or implement any other regulations. Now, can we make the argument that some of these social media platforms are acting as publishers? We could make that argument and we could go down that route. But I'm just saying there's another way. Let's just use some of these other platforms. Anyway, my thought for the day. Y'all know how I do. Stay frosty, people.